Hello, hi, the Photojournalism Hub here. We are very, very pleased today to present two great photographers who are joining us from the States, Ada Trillo and Isaac Scott, who will be speaking with us about their current exhibit, A Look at the World, which is curated by David Acosta, and it is currently showing at the Da Vinci Alliance in Philadelphia. I would really love us to discuss or to talk a little bit about how the exhibition came about. Yes, how the journey was to get this exhibition currently on. How did it came about? Basically, I don't know if you like to start, Ada, maybe to tell us a little bit in your
Well, the brain behind this was David Acosta. He was the one that basically came up with this great idea of like the parallels of both works during this period of time. And he had seen Isaac's work and my work, and then he saw a connection. He's like a brilliant man and has a brilliant eye. So he approached both of us and said if we would be interested. And we both said yes, because honestly, it's a great platform. I trust what he does. I trust his eye. He helped with the selection of the pictures we provided. He's like, no, this goes best. This picture talks to this picture from Isaac, and he made sure that it was not just a show of me or him. It was a show that had a conversation between the pieces.
right.
And I think that's very difficult to achieve, and he achieved it.
Right. I actually think like it's a quite. I thought when I saw the first intro regarding your exhibition, I actually thought, wow, it's so in a way so challenging in a sense, because there are two massive big topics, and there they are presented in one single exhibition. And I think it's quite ambitious, as well as obviously very important, as I mentioned, but it's quite an ambitious curation and all that. And how do you both feel in terms of the actual curation aspects? Do you feel that the exhibition is showing what you would like to say, or how is the people reacting to what you're talking about? Because we are talking to massive topics which are actually still ongoing, so they reflect today's realities, really. And we are still immersed in it, right? So I'm just wondering, maybe Isaac, what do you, how do you feel about this? It's quite an amazing, quite ambitious topic, right? And a curation. How do you feel about the curation itself? Do you feel that, does it reflect what's going on? And
Yeah, I think it's really important that, different, oppressed groups can find the connections between both our stories. I think it's important to understand that a lot of the things that we're facing are related. And I think the photos that we are presenting, reflect that. I think in a lot of ways, a lot of the photos that, we have, a lot of our photos are facing on opposite sides of the walls, and they're almost like reflections of each other, in a lot of ways. And you can see a lot of the obstacles that, both groups, the caravans and the people in the protests were facing. And, a lot of it was like, physical violence, government intervention, and a lot of very similar stories were taking place, at the same time in different parts of the world, so I think it's just, I think it's a good, to remind ourselves that we're up against a lot of the same things, and that's what unites us. And we can support each other in our struggles. And I think that's one of the things that this show wants to bring to the surface and create conversations about. And I think it achieves that.
Amazing. Yes. Yeah. And I guess they both, you know, they, like you mentioned, there is a lot of violence, and again, is a violence and is a trauma reflecting two, you know, in two different scenarios, but they're very much kind of interlinked as well. Ada, would you like to talk a little bit about your work? Because it's so much about, you know, in a sense, quite a lot of trauma, and, you know, like from people that they are seeking for a better life, a better, you know, a relief from their for their very difficult circumstances. And I know that you've been working for a very long time and very up close with your subjects. And I was, yeah, would you like to talk a little bit about your work?
Yes. Well, I've been working with the refugee crisis from Central America since 2017. And I started when Trump in the midterm election said a comment about Mexicans being murderers and racist and murderers and drug dealers and all sorts of absolutely horrible and bogus things. And I really thought, I think that people are not evil, that they're misinformed. Of course, there's evil people, but that the majority of humans do have a good heart, but maybe the information they're getting in the filter is wrong. So I wanted to show a different perspective through art of what's really going on. I started noticing in the States how people of color in my communities were being disrespected, treated like dirt. And I felt that if they only knew the route and the sacrifice, perhaps they maybe say thank you the next time somebody picks their trash, somebody gives them coffee. Perhaps they'll just treat them like a human being, knowing that all the efforts and sacrifices they've made. So I decided to traverse the different journeys. I've done all the different journeys that migrants make. I've done 3 caravans, the La Bestia, etc., to show what is the transit and what is involved in that transit. And one of the major things that happens in Mexico, especially where the cartel is ruling, is the human trafficking. Human trafficking for organs, human trafficking for prostitution, because now we're not talking about sex work. Once you're abducted, it's prostitution. So it's very important that people understand these dangers and how the community has to be treated with respect. And then in combining that with Isaac's work, I think that both my community and his community have been very oppressed and marginalized. But this is an opportunity for both communities to unite, because united, we're more people and we have more of a voice if we join ties and say, this is wrong. So this is an opportunity in this show to bring both ethnic groups together and say, guys, you need to treat us better.
Well, yes, because it's very much about similar fight for equalities, and then a fight for race, you know, against racism, really.
And basic human rights.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah. So, Safeena, do you have some specific questions regarding?
So, Ada, when I was looking at your work, I was struck by your bravery. You have a real spine of steel. I was going to say cojones, but that might not be. But you do have like a great, you know, a very strong, you know, backbone and belief. I wanted to know, how do you keep yourself safe in these situations?
I am from the theory that when it's your time, is your time. I drive a lot the bike. I can be, and I'm like a little bit like, I put attention in the flashiest thing I see next. So I could easily be hit by a bike, right? In the bike, or I can have a car accident, or I can get cancer. It's when it's your time, is your time. So having that part of thinking that the universe decides when I die, not me, gives me peace that I have a purpose. And what I'm doing is fulfilling a purpose in my life. So when I actually die, I actually did something with my life and left the world better.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
I know, right?
Yeah. Can all use it. Yeah.
But okay, that's amazing. And how do you what measures do you take to ensure the safety of the people that you photograph? Like, are any of them at risk?
No, I actually am very careful with that.
Mhm.
I'm very, very careful. For instance, a lot of the people that I photograph in the shelter. Now, you have to consider two things. Refugees have rights under the Geneva Convention. However, migrants don't. So there's a huge difference between photographing a migrant and photographing a refugee, because a refugee actually has an asylum case, or a migrant is going there for work and will be returned because he's not in fear of persecution under the law. So that's the difference. So when I go to the migrant shelter in Juarez, where I give workshops, I'm very careful who I photograph. Make sure that they have a case, that they're okay with me photographing them. I don't give last names, stuff like that. I make sure that they're okay. And the most important thing is I follow up with them through social media or through WhatsApp with the majority.
And do you have to, so you gain consent from everyone that you?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I mean, unless for the pictures of the river where you can't even see the faces, I ask permission. You know what? I also have to be smart. I'm 5'1" and I weigh 109, right? So if I take a picture of somebody and they give me, or let's say a guy, whatever, and they just say they're not happy about that, how easy is it that they can punch me in the face, or they can destroy the camera because they got angry? It's so much easier. Hey, do you mind if I take your picture? Or when I'm like that, and I'm like, then and that's just so easy. So, but it's at least you're giving them the consent, you're not stealing something.
So, I mean, do you think that being a woman and being 5'1" works for you or against you in a situation like that? Do you think people warm to you because you're more approachable, or?
The most approachable thing you have is your facial expression and your smile. If you go there fishy and you're looking like you want something, and or you go there with an attitude, that's gonna kill you. The best thing that you have to do, being the size that you are, is just being nice to others and with a smile. Hey, can I take a picture? Or if it's a sad moment, can I take your picture? This is important. People should know about this. Your story needs to be heard. So it depends on the scenario, but always with compassion, always with niceness. Just that doesn't. I wouldn't like if somebody did that to my child, and I wouldn't like it if somebody did that to me. So why would I do it to somebody else?
I mean, the question is about respect, and that not all photojournalists have that, though. When they're trying to get the shot, some of them do just want to get the shot. So that's really,
and that's a shame. And also, you see, what is the intention and what is the purpose? Some of those photojournalists have to have a deadline for the newspaper that is like, really pressuring them. I'm in a different scenario because I'm in the art world. Nobody's pressuring me. I come up with these projects. I do them in my own time, so I have a much more flexibility than somebody that's working for an agency.
Okay. And I've noticed that you've won quite a few awards. Just in the past few years, because you said, when did you start photography?
2017.
So even in that short time, have you seen things change for women? Because you won the British Journal of Photography. You were featured in the British Journal of Photography.
It's more inclusive. I'm definitely seeing a shift of more inclusion of women and also of women of color. in the photography world. We're not where we should be.
Yeah.
But I am seeing like the line going up, and it should be. And also, I'm LGBTQ, so that's also a door that had been closed for years and is now being opened. So I'm very happy at the way that things are going in that manner.
Okay.
I wish they continue.
Great, I hope so too. This is a question to both you and to Isaac. So in the last 2 years since the Black Lives Matter, how do you think photography has impacted? How do you think photography has impacted the movement?
I think the biggest thing that I wanted to do when I was taking the photos is I really wanted to capture, the humanity of the people, on the front lines, from the perspective of someone who's participating, in the protest. And I think that's something that people don't see a lot. And there's a ton of photographers there all over the place, standing right next to me, and not necessarily people from the press. They were just people out brought their cameras to the protest, and that happened all around the country, and we saw that all over social media. And I think that you can spread the message in a way that you don't get when you're watching the news. It's a very more objective and impersonal when you're getting it through news, and when people are putting their own political spin on it. So I think that photography has a big impact on the way people feel about the protests, and how that message gets carried on into the future. And I think that's a really important thing, because just a part of the impact long term, the people who are there participating in taking pictures to tell their own stories of what happened and recording their own history, I think is crucial to movements that happen into the future, and how we keep telling those stories, how we keep bringing that energy back, and keep these conversations going, and not let them just be one moment, in 2020, let it be a movement that carries on for years to come. So I think for me, that's personally what I see that the photography as, and that's what I want to continue to try to do with my work. And that's great to have the show, because it's another opportunity for me to be able to talk about the issues that are important to me, and for people to see the things that happened in 2020, and not to forget.
Absolutely. So have you seen any changes from 2020 in the past 2 years, specifically for people of color?
I mean, in 2020 there were some gains, but I think it fell way short of what people were hoping for. A lot of the issues that got Biden elected revolved around the protests, and I feel like there's a lot of things that Biden has done that seems to have forgotten where that how he won that election. I think when he goes up and says we need to fund the police more, I feel like it's just ignoring what people were calling for. I think people want more resources allocated to places that actually fight poverty and prevent crime, and educate people, and make sure people are housed and fed and have healthcare and taken care of. That prevents people feeling the desperate need to go out and do crime. Also on the side of healthcare, where on mental health, where you have trained mental health professionals show up instead of someone with a gun who has no training on how to deal with mental health incident. I think things like that don't seem to be being discussed at all. And he's just like, well, just give more guns and more, you know, military equipment to these police officers, because that's going to somehow solve something. When we saw, you know, during 2020, the police over and over again proved what, you know, they were capable of. So I just think that, I mean, obviously there's just more work to do. I hope that, you know, by, you know, keeping these stories alive and reminding people of what's going on, they're aware of that and are willing to, you know, stay involved in that struggle, you know.
Great. So tell me about the technical aspects of you two putting on the exhibition. Like, what advice would you give to people, newbies, who are like, oh, there's an issue that I really want to cover, but they don't know how to go about it. What advice would you two give?
You should just do it.
Mhm. Yes, I agree.
Just
That's
do
what I
it.
was gonna say. Just do it. Don't think about it. Do it.
Yeah, there's no right time to do it. You're gonna suck at the beginning, and you're just gonna get better. So just do it. I don't know that like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't like when I started doing photography in 2020, like January 2020. I took a photography class, and then the pandemic hit, and so I'm normally a ceramic artist, so I just kept doing photography because I lost my access to my studio, right, for ceramics. So I just really just turned to photography as the thing that I did to, you know, basically stay sane during the pandemic. So I just go walk around my neighborhood, take photos all the time and stuff. And then when the protests happened, I just brought my camera because that's what I'd been doing. I knew it was important for me to be out there and taking the photos. I didn't know that my photos were going to, you know, end up in the New Yorker or stuff like that. I just knew that it was important that this stuff gets captured. So I think it's just like, I think if you're going into it with the idea that like, oh, I'm going to be a famous artist and I'm going to be like super successful because I'm out here, you know, taking photos or making paintings or making sculptures of whatever, I think it's not gonna go well. You just have to, you know, just go out there and just do the best job you can and just keep at it. And then eventually, you know, you'll figure it out and it'll be good and people will notice it and you'll be able to tell those stories more, you know. But as long as you keep that as your like your motivating factor, you know, you'll be able to do it.
I think you have to take the pictures for you. What happens later, it happens later. You can't control it. It's out of your hands. If you take the pictures for you with your intention, what you want to say, then you're going to be okay. Because regardless of if you get an audience or not, you're going to be happy with the work. And you're going to be happy that you did it. But if you don't do it, then you will have a regret. And there's not good to live with regrets.
Definitely.
Yes. I have a question for both of you, actually. I would like to know what is the response from the actual community that you photographed? It's both for you, Ada, and for you, Isaac.
Do you want to go first, Isaac, or me?
Sure, I can go. I mean, from like the people that I know who are in the protests a lot, I mean, a lot of us were following each other on Instagram. And I was always sharing the photos that I was taking with whatever group organized the protests. So I would find the organizers, I would talk with them, I would tell them I'm taking photos. And then at the end of the day, I would like edit the photos and share it with them. So, I mean, they always would want, and then I would sometimes I'd get invited back to like, be like, hey, we're having a protest over here. Could you come and take photos? So, I mean, there's that where like, you know, that product can be used again by those people to promote their next event or to, you know, whatever they want to do with it. So I think that there is like a positive, like a practical, like positive, like influence in that way. And I think there's a lot of people who, you know, I just talk to just like about the photos on like a daily basis. Like, I think, you know, what's interesting is like all the stories that get brought up, you know, so like as someone I've like known in the protest, and, you know, they see the photos, they talk about like, oh, this brought me back. I was there that day. Oh, this brought me back to like blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I think there's like that aspect of it too, where what it reminds people of is like the moment we went through in history, you know? I mean, because it's also bringing back the issues, but it's also bringing back all the craziness that we were going through at the time. Like we were in the middle of a pandemic, you know, we didn't have a vaccine, and we're out in the streets, you know, protesting and out there like every day in the heat, and like, so it's like I think it's a thing that, you know, it brings people back to how crazy that moment was, and the like it like reminds you of how important the urgency of that moment, you know, and how important it is to keep going, you know.
In my case, it's very well appreciated because I travel with them. So I do the entire journey with them, right? So it's being documented, and they want those stories to be heard. Also, they want to make sure that there's a record that they're alive and that they were in that journey in case that they're like abducted or something happens. For instance, a little girl that I took care of, like I watched her in the caravan of 2018, Maria Fernanda, crossed all the way from Honduras all the way to Tijuana. And she was 15 years old and LGBTQ and had signs of torture in her body. And she was not allowed in the United States. I had pictures of her during the journey, and I was also, because I continued the conversation, I was talking to the mother while on WhatsApp while the trip and afterwards. Maria Fernanda got killed this year by the gangs, and the pictures that I have of her during that trip bear witness of her life, that she actually tried to do something to escape that and to be, you know, she did what she could in order to escape that trauma, you know, of the abuse in Honduras. So the mother, for instance, in the burial, put one of the pictures that I took of her. So it is appreciated, but sometimes it's appreciated in a way that I don't expect it.
Yes, it's a very, very sad story, and I guess it's not even the only one, for sure. Like many, yeah. I think it's hard to leave this for a moment. So yes, what's your next plans? Both of you, with your work, what you are hoping will be your next steps, and in continuing, as I use your words, Isaac, your movement. Yeah.
Well, I more recently, after the Roe v. Wade decision, there was protests in town, and I was back out there taking photos. And right now there's an encampment on the West Philly, and they're protesting their homes being like demolished for some like high rise to go up or something. So I was gonna go, you know, take photos of that. I mean, there's enough, you know, there's never a shortage of crazy things happening nowadays.
Yes, that's true.
Both just like in politics, federally, or more locally. So there's usually something to take photos of. But also I would like to, branch out into other forms of photography, and not just, documentary photography, but also like studio photography and things like that. And tell these stories in a different way. So yeah, I still feel like very new to photography in a lot of ways. And I just want to get better at it, because the image is so effective. It's really effective in how we can connect people to emotionally, to different stories and people and things like that. So it's a powerful tool. So I hope to, continue doing it, get better at it.
Yeah. And I guess what I thought was very interesting is that you even use it you're doing ceramic pieces with your images, is it? Yeah, so it's another way to branch out, in a sense, to tell the same story but in a different manner. I found it quite interesting when I first saw it, because one thinks of sculpture, or particularly ceramic piece, as something like more like an object, like something you use, and also it's a more of that sense of common, like more, something that you more accustomed to see in your kitchen or whatever. But yet you have such a powerful images that connect to this very heavy narrative. Yeah, I just think I don't have really, it's more an observation from what you say. It's not really a question, but I think it's quite interesting how you try to, you tell these very powerful stories, but in a very kind of, trying out different ways to tell that very important narrative. I found that very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to add both to the sculptures, or vice versa, add to the image. Sometimes there's a certain like energy or perspective that you want to the image to evoke, and
Yes.
Sometimes that image can bring it out of a piece, and sometimes you're providing more context to the image itself. So it's fun to just try things that aren't just on nice archival photo paper. It's like you can do different things with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's something quite unsettling in a sense, because you're used to, or unsettling in a good way, because like you are used to decorative things on cups or whatever, and you have such a strong message, it's like, oh yeah, it's just like that sense of wow. I think it's quite interesting. Yeah. And for you, Ada, what's your next
Well, I have a few things cooking.
Okay.
And one is very long term. It's like a 5-year process that I already started, and it's on the trans community that are asylum seekers from Central America. So documenting what is their life in Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, and what is their life at the border of Juarez and Tijuana, and then what is their life once they get the asylum or the process of asylum in the US. So it's like showing from start to end the whole not with the same person, obviously, but with the same group of what are they leaving, like if they're getting tortured, what types of circumstances they are. I already started with the ones in America, but I want that those same groups to refer me to people where I can stay in Central America from the trans community and actually live with them where they are. So I can really document what is happening to them if they get hit, if they get, anything that might happen, that I'm there to show this violence and this is what people are escaping. That's why you should let them in. Because during the journeys that I've taken in different times, I've noticed that the most vulnerable of all is the LGBT community, especially trans women. They are the most vulnerable of all. They are often also marginalized by the same group that's traveling with them, excludes them. For example, in the caravan of 2018, they had to separate the groups because they were being harassed. So in Mexico City, the trans community LGBTQ took buses, separate buses that the LGBT community from the US and Mexico provided for these asylum seekers. So they wouldn't have to be with the caravan that some people were bothering them. And then they put them in a different shelter just so they would be, in a better place. So you think things like that people often don't know. And, again, they come here to the United States and they have more rights, but they're still like not treated with the dignity they deserve. And it's like how to bring that. And on top of that, they're of color and they're asylees and they don't speak the language very well. How can we provide more services? Because for me, a picture, if you don't do anything with the picture, if it comes no good, then why did I take it? So that's one. And then the other one is I have workshops in Mexico for children 8 to 18. And I teach them photography for the migrant kids. Sometimes I get up to 80 kids. And the best student receives a free camera. And I have so many photographer friends that they don't, like, they have stuff that works, but it's just, they have the newest model. So they have it like just in the closet. So I get so many like nice things that I'm able to do this. And the last recipient got a job taking pictures at the church because he was a Christian. So the pastor gave him a job and he had Asperger's. So these kids have missed so much school that they need like a craft, they need a passion, and there's no school in the shelter. So I'm very excited about continuing doing that and maybe expanding it, trying to get more cameras, because now they have to share the cameras and they don't exactly like that. But to try to get more cameras into their hands. Well, hands of the shelter, basically. They store them.
Amazing. Yeah. Well done. I mean, I can see there is a great, for both of you, quite strong sense of advocacy in your work, and I really enjoy that. And I think it's a very, very important, like you say, why taking a picture if there is, there is no value for it. I think that's quite powerful statement, actually. Yeah. So, I mean, the exhibition is still on until the 17th of August. Unfortunately, as in Europe, unless we come to the States, we only can enjoy seeing some of it online. But I would encourage for those that they are in Philadelphia to go and see it, because it's, it would be great to see your work in real life, and as well to engage with both of you and your work, and what what your testimonies, your stories that spans from the photographs, really. So the exhibition is at the Da Vinci, right? Da Vinci Alliance, yes, in Philadelphia, until the 17th of August. Is that every day until 7 o'clock? Is that correct, or is it? What's the timing? Do you know? The exhibition?
Oh, the hours of the day?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not really sure.
I think I saw till 7. Let's go for that. Okay. I will, always people interested can always double check, I guess. Great. I mean, it's been amazing talking with both of you. I really appreciate this conversation, and I really hope that more people connect with what you're saying and with your work, really, because I keep on saying it, but it's a really worthwhile, very meaningful work. So yeah, really thank you both for being with us today. Yes.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
Thank you for the invitation. It was lovely.
You're welcome.
Also, I just want to say, Ada,
yes, of course.
like your work is absolutely incredible, and the amount that you're risking and all the things that you're doing with your photography is absolutely like mind blowing. You know, so I just like thank you. I just want to say thank you for your work, and it's been an amazing experience doing a show with you. Yeah, and just thank you. Yeah.
Let's trade a picture.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well done. I mean, have you met each other on the private view, or did you meet at all?
Not in person.
Oh.
Not in person, just through Zoom.
Oh, well, let's hope it will happen. Well done to both. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.